Alright, what's going on, everybody? This is Z, straight through here, back to a brand new video. 5:42 p.m., a little bit later than I anticipated doing this. I normally try to make these videos at around 1 or 2 p.m. when the new 25 rankings come out. I tend to not do these on time normally anyways, but I'm going to go ahead and get into week 10 for football scoreboard. Compared to the previous few weeks, there's not a lot of big top 25 matchups. I believe last 2 weeks we've had like 2 to 3 top 10 matchups, or multiple at least, within 1 week. This week was not that, but we still had some really interesting games, had some good upsets, and some good stories, and the continuation of other stories that are unfolding as we get nearer and nearer to the end of the regular season and the conference championships before we get into the actual playoffs. And the race is starting to get a bit tighter, but still no idea. Let's get into it anyways. On Friday, Memphis playing Rice. Rice has never been a good football program, probably never will be. However, Memphis is having itself a year. Finally ranked at number 25, and they prove why. After an upset win last week against South Florida, they cruised to victory. You see here they started off the game at the half with a 24-point lead. They win 38-14 against Rice. Penn State dropping to 0-5 in the Big Ten and not won a Big Ten game after starting the season as number 2 team in the nation. Star quarterback is out for this remainder of the year, and their coach has been fired. Actually, at the half, it was only 17-14. They were playing pretty tight. But in that second half, Ohio State was a 21 unanswered points, takes control, wins 38-14. And Penn State is probably going to be in the gutter. I mean, think about it. James Franklin brought them back from the brink of destruction after Pitino was fired. Brought them back to relevance. Just going to really beat Michigan or Ohio State or make that next step to become championship contenders. I mean, last year they were one game away from the national championship, really a couple plays away from playing the national championship. Complete opposite this year, and look for their program to be bad for a long time. But Ohio State continue its dominance, undefeated, one of the very few undefeated teams left in the nation. Talk about that more later. Indiana playing Maryland. They continue to impress. Blowout victory against Maryland, 55-10. I mean, these two teams are far and away the best two teams in the nation. Like, I would say there's Ohio State, Indiana, and then a gap between the teams in the nation. I do believe they will play at some point in the season. Georgia and Florida. Now, Florida had a lead late. They had this game in their grasp to upset Georgia, and they blew it. It was in Jacksonville, so this wasn't a home game for either team. Well, I mean, it's technically a home game. In a way, it's in the same state as Florida, but there was a lot, and from what I saw, there was a lot more Georgia fans there. It's in Everbank Stadium. Georgia, once again, they prove that they're teams that do not be traveled with. In that fourth quarter, they come alive, and they find a way to win on defense and offense. It was Florida's first game without Billy Napier as well, and they played a lot better. But did not get it done. Georgia escapes yet another upset. North Carolina and Ole Miss have 17-7. North Carolina having a pretty disappointing year. Lawrence Sellers, as I've said previously, one of those that is the Heisman being the season, has not played very, very well. Not really a good team either. Ole Miss, 30-14. They win. Georgia Tech, one of the last remaining unbeaten teams, goes down and gets upset by NC State, who had only won one AC game. They won 48-36. So their offense came alive in this game. Who was their quarterback? Heinz Keene still had 408 yards. See, we had interceptions to go with it. He had one interception. But the offense, obviously, Georgia Tech's defense played horrible this game. Georgia Tech gets a loss. When you think about the loss, though, it's much better to get a loss now as opposed to later. Hey, we still have some issues on different sides of the ball that we need to take care of. Take care of it and continue. Because this thing about Georgia Tech's remaining schedule, they got Boston College and Pitt. Neither of these games are a gimme, and then they got Georgia. So they really need to win both of these two games. And then if they lose to Georgia, that's only 2 losses. And they go win the ACC to pretty much guarantee a spot in the playoffs. But I really thought they were going to go undefeated until they played Georgia, and I thought they had a very good chance of playing Georgia. But we'll see. Vandy and Texas. This game was one of those games people didn't think that Texas could win. They've had a down year. Arch Manning has not been as advertised. It was a Heisman front runner. Texas was #1 team in the nation. It was the quickest team ever to fall from #1 to unranked ever. However, on the opposite side, Vandy's having one of its best years since World War II, pretty much. Diego Pavia. Despite having worse stats, Arch Manning has more passing yards. Around the same completion rate. Arch Manning has a few more touchdowns, but 1 or 2 more interceptions. So Arch Manning is definitely having a better year stat-wise than Diego Pavia, but Diego Pavia is a Heisman front runner for some reason. For the story. But this was a smackdown. You see at the half it was 24-10. And it was 34-10. And then Vanderbilt had a fourth quarter resurgent. There were some questionable calls that kept them in the game. Texas played a bit more relaxed. So it's probably their first time really all year having a lead against a team they weren't supposed to technically have a lead to. And they almost blew it. But I think it's a good learning experience for Texas. They came in force. Arch Manning played fantastic. In fact, he probably had his best game of all year. 25 of 33. That's his best completion percentage by far. 3 touchdowns. Wingo, 89 yards. However, he did go out with an injury, so we'll see how that affects him later. He's a great receiver. But this was a dominant performance by Texas for the fourth quarter. Texas is looking a lot stronger, and they're looking like a different team. That's what we saw in the beginning of the season. We'll see if they continue that momentum, if we get some more upsets down the road. So they got Georgia and A&M remaining. Miami falls again to SMU. Carson Beck has 2 interceptions in this game, including a game-filling interception overtime. Miami is now 2-2 in the ACC and now out, really kind of out of the running to get in the ACC championship. And this is going to greatly diminish their chance of getting to the playoffs unless some teams get knocked out. Meanwhile, SMU, after having a disappointing start to the season, is now 6-3 and 4-1 in the ACC, and they control their own destiny. You know, they were a playoff team last year. I thought they were going to be one of the front runners in the ACC, but had some such losses. Let's go ahead and look into these losses. For instance, lost to Baylor in overtime. Should not have lost that game. Or TCU. Or Wake Forest. Really, they should be undefeated right now. But they're not, you know. Hey, it's whatever. They could go undefeated the rest of the season. Louisville will be a tough matchup, but I do think they have a chance to rewrite their season and perhaps skid into the playoffs as the ACC champion. You never know. Notre Dame beating Boston College, who was 1-8, 25-10. Of course, their only 2 losses are to Miami, who was a top 10 team, but probably won't be, and then A&M, one of the only unbeaten teams in the nation. I should have gone to overtime had their kicker not missed a chip shot extra point. But anyways, Notre Dame 6-2, doing what they need to do to try and crawl back into the playoffs. So look at the remaining schedule here. It should be Navy's undefeated. Pittsburgh not a gimme, but they should remain they probably will make it at 6 if they only have 2 more losses. But can they compete with other programs? That's a question that I do not think they can. Texas Tech going back against Kansas State, who's definitely had a disappointing season, 3-3 in the Big 12 after being one of the teams predicted to win the Big 12. Texas Tech, however, having a great year, a lot of NIL money from those oil companies. Again, one of the best offenses in the nation. I believe they were #1 for a time. Not too sure if that's still the same thing, but they win 43-20. And they had a definite second half resurgence. Look at that. It's only 12-7, and then boom. Just blew them out of the water in the second half. Texas Tech looking very likely to be a playoff team for the Big 12. Meanwhile, Oklahoma goes into Knoxville and upsets Tennessee, who's now 3-3. Both of these teams needed this win to remain in competition for some good bowl games this year. Tennessee loses. In the first quarter of the game, it seemed to be all Tennessee. Those first 2 drives, Oklahoma had them at 3rd and longs, and then had 2 back-to-back, not back-to-back, but 2 separate drives, back-to-back in a way, of penalties, which then let Tennessee go down the field. And they were tagging that secondary like and cutting up like butter on cheese. It was insane how easy they were passing it around. See, Aguilar had almost 400 yards. Then they were in the red zone, and it was a fumble recovery that was returned all the way for this touchdown right here. Probably about 70 to 60 yards. And that kind of changed the dynamic of the game. Oklahoma goes into Knoxville and secures a big win, 33 to 27. I tell you what, they're a good team. They have a great defense, one of the best defensive lines in the nation. John Mateers, the quarterback, coming off an injury. Still, I think probably feeling that injury, but Oklahoma gets a big win. Definitely having a better year than they did last year. Virginia having a surprisingly great year, 5-0 in the ACC. Probably no one saw this coming. They win 31 to 21. Good for them. Louisville also having a great year, 7-1, 4-1 in the ACC. ACC got a lot of competition at that top level. Like I feel like the ACC and the Big 12. Well, the ACC is very top heavy. Louisville, Virginia, Miami, SMU, and that's it. Big 12 as well. They have a lot of good teams. Let me retract that. I would say the Big 10 is top heavy. ACC and Big 12 have a lot of competition. Big 12, Cincinnati, having a great year, gets blown out by Utah. Surprisingly, their first loss to the Big 12 comes in the form of a blowout, 45 to 14. See if Sorsby had any interceptions. He only had one. Utah gets a huge blowout win that will definitely help their ranking and their in the race for the Big 12. I believe Cincinnati was the last unbeaten team in the Big 12, if I stand correct. Moving on, we got Michigan and Purdue. Wesley probably check out the standings in a little bit here. First time we've done that in a while, maybe all year. Michigan pulls off the win against Purdue, who's now also winless in the Big Ten. Michigan still remaining 7-2 and 5-1 in the Big Ten. But can they beat the better teams? Is yet to be seen. West Virginia upsets Houston after being ranked. West Virginia's first win in the Big 12, 45 to 35. Kind of a fluke win here. Houston's probably wondering what the hell happened, how they lost to West Virginia. USC, meanwhile, beats Nebraska 21 to 17. It's 4-1 in the Big Ten. And not only this, but Nebraska lost their star quarterback for the regular season, Dylan Raiola. Nebraska they can't have anything nice, can they? They fall 6-3 and 3-3 in the Big Ten. Let's go ahead and first real quickly check the stats here. Aguilar is back in the top 5. Duke Guy back in the top 5. They beat Clemson. It was their first 5-loss season since 2010, I believe. Drew Messmaker still up there, Baylor. Rushing wise, Hardy taking a dip again. New number 1 of Cam Cook. Nebraska guy also making a resurgence here. Receiving yards, Breeze was the only really big school to be in this list. Went to the standings here. We'll kind of spoil the rankings here, but Navy and the American and Memphis, with Texas and Green, Tulane, South Florida. I would say right here are your potential champions. Cut it off at East Carolina. These are the good teams. Navy's not undefeated, so they lost. Who did they lose to? Oh, they had their first loss in North Texas. That's right. This week. First loss in North Texas. Interesting. Really good teams right here. ACC. And look at this. From here down. Like Miami's 2-2 in the conference. Like all these 5-0 Virginia's undefeated. Like, who's gonna win this conference? Same thing with Big 12. The goal is competition right here. 4-2 teams right here. That's where you cut off. Big Ten, very top heavy in my opinion. This team, playoff team, championship contender, could make the playoff, but will get smacked. And no one else will probably make the playoff, in my opinion. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. Only 2 Pac-12 teams. SEC, just look at all these ranked teams. Let's go ahead and check out the rankings. See what's got. Probably a lot of shaking up here. Top 7 remain the same. Only 4 teams remain undefeated. Ohio State, Indiana, A&M, the top 3, and then BYU at 8. They move up 2 spots. Texas Tech moves back into the top 10 at number 9. Notre Dame was the top 10, dropped all the way down around the 20s, and is now, slowly but surely, now back in the top 10 at number 2. Moving up to Oklahoma, moves up 7 spots. Right, creeping back into that top 10 spot. What's funny is that Texas has beat Oklahoma. Oklahoma is ranked higher than Texas. I think both these teams are ranked a bit too high. And Texas should be ranked ahead of Oklahoma because they beat Oklahoma pretty easily. So I don't know what the AP voters were really thinking they were doing, but hey, whatever. Virginia. By the way, Virginia should be ahead of Oklahoma. They're at 12. Texas jumped 7 points to 13. Louisville, 7-1 is at 14. Vandy drops 6 spots for 15. Meanwhile, Georgia Tech drops 8 spots to 8-1. That's a little suspect. They should have maybe dropped to still be ahead of Oklahoma and Texas. I don't get why they dropped so low, but probably some SEC bias there. Utah up 7 spots to number 17 after their win. Miami drops 8 spots to 18. Now I can kind of get behind that. Missouri stays the same. USC is up 3 to 20. Michigan's still at 21. Memphis is up 3. Tennessee drops 9 spots. Washington finally getting that ranking that they had been deserving of. At 24. Cincinnati drops 8 spots just outside. Just still inside the top 25. Houston, only team to drop in the top 25. Just outside is Iowa, surprisingly. So I have a lot of gripe about these top 25 rankings here. Again, Texas smacked Oklahoma, but is ranked below them. Question mark. Georgia Tech dropped a bit too low, in my opinion. But whatever. Let's go ahead and go see what got coming next week. See, we got some more top 25 matchups with Western versus USC. Tulane versus Memphis. And this is not a gamey game. These are both really good teams. Tulane has had really successful last couple of years. One of the more successful mid-major schools, Indiana and Penn State, should be a blowout. It's at Beaver Stadium, but I think the spread is 14 pretty much for Indiana, but I see them winning by 21 or more here. Mississippi State and Georgia. Mississippi State, again, is one of those teams that can keep games close, but they just can't win. I believe their first SEC win in about 2 years last week to Arkansas. Arkansas is the dumpster fire of college sports. They can't even beat a team that hasn't won in 2 years. They're at home, so don't count them out. But look for Georgia. If this game is close, look for Georgia to have some fourth quarter plays that win them the game, or just beat their butt. Here we go. A top 10 match at BYU and Texas Tech. This is a crucial game for the Big 12. Crucial game for both teams, really. I mean, who would have suspected that Texas Tech and BYU would be facing each other as a top 10 opponents? Should be an awesome game. And another undefeated go down. Ohio State versus Purdue should be a blowout. Keyword should. We have seen Purdue do some crazy things against Ohio State in the past. Citadel versus Ole Miss is the gaming game. A&M versus Missouri, another top 25 opponent. I don't anticipate Missouri, despite being at home, having any chance against A&M. And the spread for A&M is only 7 points, but I anticipate them winning by at least multiple scores for sure. Is there a Heisman race thing? Maybe? I don't know. Look at that maybe in a little bit. Or another episode. Oregon versus Iowa. Again, Iowa's just outside top 25. So really not a game. They are Oregon is on the road, but look for Oregon to make a statement victory here and beat their butt. Miami cannot afford another loss here versus Syracuse. They're favored by 28 points though. Auburn and Vandy. Auburn, one of the worst teams in this game, and they just suck. Vandy's looking for a comeback win after losing last week to Texas at home. Look for them to handle business. Washington and Wisconsin, their first game with top 25 against a winless Wisconsin team in the Big Ten. Should handle business. Virginia, also undefeated in ACC, should handle business against Wake Forest. Louisville should handle business against California. Alabama and LSU, normally a big rivalry game, but only a very highly ranked game. LSU is not 25 anymore. They are 2-3, under 500 in SEC, and I do anticipate that Brian Kelly will be out of a job at the end of the season. Look for Alabama. They're favored by pretty much 11 points. Look them at home. Look for them to win by. I'm thinking if LSU got blown out by A&M, I would anticipate the same. I think Alabama wins this game by 21 plus points. Navy and Notre Dame. Notre Dame is favored by 25 points here, and it probably will be a butt whooping. Let's be real. So that race to the playoffs is getting closer and closer. Probably going to be a lot of SEC teams making the playoffs. Maybe even a lot of Big 12, Big 10 teams. But it's getting harder for the major teams to make it. But it's been a really great season so far. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more content. I know I've been talking about making some more video game videos like Star Wars Republic. Trying my best to get back to that. Just been busy and choosing to do free time, being social and other things. But I promise I will get back to it as soon as possible. Appreciate your support. As always, this is E3 signing out.